Welcome to the Fair Housing Insiders. We are so thankful that you joined us. And please remember to subscribe here on our YouTube channel or follow and like us on your favorite social media outlet, which you can find links to in our show notes for even more fair housing news and insights. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fair Housing Insiders and welcome to episode 82. We are focusing on part 3 of our series, Is It a Disability? In part 1 and 2, we talked about obesity and smoking. And today, for part 3, we're going to focus on, is it a disability? Addiction. So let's take a look at our scenario to help set the stage, and then we'll look for Leslie's comments after we watch this short video on a leasing professional receives a request for a reasonable accommodation because of a drug addiction. So let's take a look.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to pay rent on time, and I know there are late fees to pay, but I just can't afford to pay extra. I was in rehab for 30 days for an addiction, and I didn't have access to be able to pay my rent in time. I also wasn't working the whole time, so those extra fees are just too much. Is there any way I can get those forgiven this one time?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Spence, but we can't make that concession for you, or we would have to do it for everyone. The only way we could consider that is if you were asking for a reasonable accommodation based on a disability.
Okay, interesting scenario. So Leslie, let's put it to you. Our first question is addiction to drugs, whether illicit or prescription, considered a disability, which would require making a reasonable accommodation?
So this is sort of a nuanced answer, but addiction to drugs, whatever kind of drugs that is, can be considered to be a disability, but only if that person is not currently using drugs and are seeking rehabilitation from that addiction. In those cases, then yes, you would be expected to make a reasonable accommodation based on their disability.
Okay, thank you. So when you look at this scenario, do you have to make an exception on the rent due date as a reasonable accommodation?
Well, HUD has instructed that the rent due date can be subject to reasonable accommodation for certain people with disabilities. However, because this would be such a case-by-case basis, it's not really something that I can give a general answer to. And I would highly recommend, if you are faced with this scenario, seeking counsel to assist with that determination.
Digible is a marketing and technology company specializing in the multifamily housing industry. We're a motley crew of industry professionals who all share a passion for a common purpose: to transform the apartment marketing industry through creative, data-driven, digital marketing and technology solutions and world-class client support. Contact us today at digible.com.
Okay, very good. So we know from our last episode, we talked about tobacco addiction, and that's not considered a disability. So while we're on the topic, is there any other addictions like gambling that fall under this category, or are all addictions considered disabilities?
No, not all addictions are considered to be disabilities. As we just talked about, addiction to drugs can be considered a disability in certain circumstances. Alcoholism is considered to be a disability for purposes of reasonable accommodations. But really nothing else, gambling or anything else, has been found to be a disability for these purposes.
Okay, thank you. So can a landlord terminate a tenant's lease after discovering that they've been using illegal drugs?
Absolutely. If that's part of your lease and you discover that someone has been using illegal drugs on the premises, you absolutely can issue a violation notice or even terminate someone's lease on that basis. Obviously, the exception would be if someone is no longer using, that use happened in the past, and they are, as I said, kind of seeking rehabilitation for that addiction.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate having you on the show. This has been episode 82 of our three-part series, Is It a Disability? And today we talked about addiction. So thank you for your comments. We thank everyone for joining the show. Until next time, take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to hear your feedback about today's episode. Do you have a topic that you would like to see discussed in a future episode? Feel free to share that with us. In the show notes, you'll see a link to sign up for our newsletter. This newsletter will keep you up to date with our latest episodes, blogs, and information about our online fair housing courses. Thank you again, and happy training.